Alright, we need to talk about the backsliding of liberalism across the globe and how we can stop it, because the dumbest, worst person you know, Andrew Tate, is now trying to start the Bruv Party. Britain restoring underlying values in the UK. I thought this was a joke at first. Number one, the graphic sucks. Number two, this dude he ran a sex trafficking scheme, allegedly. So let's go through what his platform consists of, how this is the most illiberal, authoritarian platform ever, and how this dude does not deserve a platform whatsoever. Make sure you drop a like, make sure you subscribe. We're experimenting with some new content styles as we head into this new year because we want to up the production value, we want to compete with the mainstream media, we want to blow this new digital media space out of the water and show what we can do. So let's just start from the beginning. This account tweeted out, Andrew Tate forms his own political party, the Bruv Party, Britain restoring underlying values. I feel like he reverse engineered that from the term bruv, but let's keep going. His platform runs on the pillars of harsh immigration control, harsh migration control, a 24/7 solitary confinement live stream of knife crime offenders. What an absolute joke. A complete teardown and restructuring of the BBC. All LGBTQ plus material banned from public schools, which is wild. This would mean that a teacher who has a husband, if he's a male, would not be able to talk about that in the classroom. You wouldn't be able to bring in photos of you and your significant other unless you are a straight couple. This is the definition of heteronormativity, meaning they're trying to make heterosexuality normative, and they're trying to make it seem weird if you're gay or you're LGBTQ. But let's keep going. We'll discuss all this in a second. Capping non-British residents at 10% of the population, a near ethno-state, promoting entrepreneurship in school. I mean, on its face, that's fine. Yeah, we should promote entrepreneurship in school, but his version of entrepreneurship is scamming vulnerable women who are 18 years old, 19 years old, into selling their bodies for his profit, reducing foreign aid to zero, and improving infrastructure at home, prioritizing NHS for British taxpayers first. We'll break this all down, but the large takeaway here is that Trump has directly enabled stuff like this to happen across the globe. Elon Musk has also directly created the permission structure for platforms like this to exist. And this seems partially like a joke, but I don't even think it is. I think Andrew Tate is so high on his own supply that he scrolls through his right-wing Twitter algorithm that Elon Musk has helped cultivate for him, and he thinks this is representative of the average person in the UK. There also could be a reality where he's trying to push the Overton window to the right in the UK. The Overton window is what's acceptable within the political discourse. For example, when Bernie Sanders started to campaign on Medicare for all in 2016, people thought that was a radical idea. It's an incredibly radical idea. Who would campaign on this? But then 4 years later, that was nearly a mainstream position in the party. People began to embrace the Bernie Sanders style of healthcare. So to flip that on its head, you can push the Overton window to the right in a similar way, where Andrew Tate's introducing all of these terrible ideas. But I mean, there's going to be an audience for this, of course. Let's scroll through the actual platform of the Bruv Party, and let's just dissect some of this, because, you know, it's good to push back on terrible ideas, and I think Democratic politicians should have been doing that more. I mean, we tried, but it seems like the right-wingers got to dominate the narrative over the last 4 years, and now people think that Biden's presidency was an absolute shit show. They think the border is overrun by straight criminals. They think that transgender people are infiltrating the schools en masse, and that's what happens when right-wingers get to dominate the narrative, not only domestically, but across the globe. So if you're wondering why I'm dissecting this, it's to show you guys how absolutely dumb it is. It starts off by saying, a time-limited mission of accountability. Give me an effing break. This dude was exposed for allegedly running a sex trafficking scheme in Romania, and he said on camera multiple times, we moved to Romania because the laws here are more relaxed when it comes to sex trafficking. There are dozens of reports of women being abused. They would take their IDs away, tattoo the Tate's names on their bodies. He was never held accountable, so I don't want to hear anything about accountability. He said, this isn't about empty promises or lifelong careers in politics. It's about results. Everything I pledge comes with a strict time limit. If I don't deliver, I step down. No excuses, no hiding. This dude thinks he's genuinely Donald Trump. He's trying to run the Donald Trump populist strategy, the outsider strategy. It's absolutely absurd. Let's go on this next page. Look around you. Look what we've become. A nation that once ruled the waves, that stood as the beacon of strength and freedom, now cowers under its own shadow. You know he thought this was so badass, but it's not. He's using a bunch of shitty AI images on the right. He then said, harsh migration control. Over 45,000 illegal immigrants arrived on our shores last year. Each one is costing you. He then says down here, boats will be leaving the UK filled with illegal migrants, and not a single one will be arriving on our shores. This is a campaign guarantee. If you come here illegally, you will not set foot on this land. He's saying you'll be deported back. He wants to deport tens of thousands of immigrants without any due process. This will inevitably end up in violence on the streets. This is just the most naive platform ever. But what do you expect coming from Andrew Tate? Donald Trump has enabled stuff like this. Elon Musk has enabled stuff like this. Donald Trump's populist far-right platform of 2016, his constant harping on immigration, has allowed the permission structure for people like Andrew Tate to think it's okay to run on a platform so absolutely authoritarian and regressive. It then says, knife crime epidemic, zero tolerance, maximum deterrence. Last year, there were 50,000 knife crime offenses in England and Wales. That's 137 every day. Mothers burying sons, fathers burying daughters. Don't you talk about fathers and daughters, Andrew Tate. He then says, lives stolen, futures destroyed. And what's the punishment? A slap on the wrist? A few years in jail? He then says, no. The punishment will be seen by Britain every day. Introducing BBC punishment. That sounds a 24/7 live stream of knife crime offenders serving solitary confinement. No redemption arcs. Okay, just take a step back. This is draconian, regressive, and it almost sounds like a joke until you realize who wrote this. This dude has delusions of grandeur that bleed into every single aspect of his life, and it's just insane that he's trying to openly promote this platform, and I guarantee some people will cheer him on. He then said, reforming the BBC, a rotten institution. The BBC was once a cornerstone of British culture. Today it's a stain on our nation's name. No way he actually wrote this. It says, sexual abuse scandals. Oh, really? Andrew Tate is talking about sexual abuse scandals 3 slides after he's talking about holding people accountable. Allegations of child exploitation. Remember, Andrew and Tristan Tate have talked about on camera sleeping with 16-year-olds when they were grown men. Reports of pornographic content. This is an absolute joke. It's like the 1984 section where they're saying the Ministry of Truth only spread lies. The Ministry of Plenty only spread starvation. The Ministry of Andrew Tate is going to be against sexual exploitation? Absolutely not. He then says, it's not just negligence, it's rot, and it must be purged. The BBC will be stripped down and rebuilt. Its mission will be factual reporting, not propaganda. Could you imagine a premier Andrew Tate deciding what classifies as propaganda and what doesn't? It's just insane. Protecting our children and restoring traditional values. What a grifter. Sorry, this is making me mad, but this is an abysmal human being trying to act like he's not. Traditional values, as in owning multiple gambling casinos, owning multiple OnlyFans companies, owning multiple businesses where you bring women in, you basically trap them in your basement and metaphorically lock them in chains. He would take their passports away, allegedly. He then says, let me be crystal clear. All LGBTQ plus propaganda will be banned from schools. Classrooms will no longer be battles for ideological warfare. I'm not sure the people waging the ideological warfare are the people that Andrew Tate thinks. Right-wingers are convinced that transgender people are infiltrating classrooms en masse as teachers that are trying to brainwash your kids into being LGBTQ. They've convinced people that so they can pass these laws when the actual effect of these laws is what I was saying earlier. Somebody who's a gay teacher who just wants to talk about his personal life won't be able to, which is absolutely sickening. We need to be pushing for liberal values when stuff like this is popping up. We need to be pushing for liberal values extra hard, because just to get mad for a second, as much as I love the Democratic Party and I'm a liberal at my core, I think that the Democratic Party's messaging has been weak for the past few years. And I know that many people here disagree with me. This should not be controversial. Just look at Donald Trump's win. If our messaging was strong, people would know about January 6th. People would know about the fake elector scheme. People would understand that we should promote liberal values at home and abroad. When you have a society where people can love who they want, where people can do what they want as long as it's not harming anybody else, you're able to maximize the well-being of that society, maximize the individual happiness in that society, which leads to a more productive society, which leads to a more productive country, a higher GDP. Just look up countries, and you can correlate GDP with the amount of freedom people have, the amount of sexual freedom or economic freedom. There's a direct correlation. A lot of the countries, like some of these Islamic countries that are really draconian with LGBTQ laws, they don't have the best economic productivity. When you're draconian about what women in your society can't and cannot do, then you're basically cutting off 50% of the workforce. Some of these Islamic countries, for example, and of course my dad is Muslim, his entire side of the family is Muslim, so these are very deep conversations that we've had. Some of these Islamic countries that don't allow women to work, that hurts their GDP directly, and that goes against liberal values. That is the antithesis of what liberalism should be. He then says, restoring British culture and identity. Ooh, this is one that I really want to dig into because, let's just read it. Britain's history is under attack. Before I read this, keep in mind, this is all a dog whistle for preserving whiteness, and Andrew Tate isn't even white himself. He wants to be. When he's talking about British heritage, that is a dog whistle. My dog is barking in the other room because of how loud this effing whistle is. Appoint a minister for British culture to celebrate and preserve our history. Is that going to be your brother, Tristan Tate? See, he even admits it right here. Cap non-British residents at 10% of the population to maintain cultural balance. You can literally swap the words maintain whiteness and he wouldn't have a problem with that. Replace modern art with statues and monuments honoring British heroes. Ensure every street in Britain feels British with English signage, flags, and traditional architecture. I mean, there it is right there. He wants a lack of diversity when diversity is a strength in any country. He then says any illegal migrant which is identified by a police officer will be arrested and deported from the nation within 7 days. No court case. So he's saying no due process. I'd love to see the downstream effects of that in 10 years because first they'll come for the immigrants, then they'll come for the LGBTQ people, then they'll come for you. That's always how it works. He then says revolutionizing education, building the future Britain deserves. Britain's future doesn't lie in outdated manufacturing, it lies in innovation, entrepreneurship, and technology. I mean, on its face, this is not a terrible line, but let's see where he goes with it. Overhaul the national curriculum. Okay, that's just wild. To prioritize entrepreneurship, critical thinking, and financial literacy. I think those last three things are good. You want people to have critical thinking skills and entrepreneurship, but you don't have this yourself, Andrew Tate. You don't have critical thinking skills or financial literacy, and you prove that on a daily basis. So creating a nation of leaders sounds good, but Andrew Tate's version of being a leader is leading a bunch of women down a dark path against their will. A nation of innovators is a nation of power. Britain may not outpace the world in manufacturing, but it can lead as a global business and technology powerhouse. Let me let you in on something, Andrew Tate. Britain will never outpace the world in manufacturing or have a nation of innovators if you're not allowing some of the most skilled immigrants from other countries. It's naive to think so. Yes, you should absolutely invest in education domestically, but if you're also blocking people from coming over, you're not going to have the results that you want. He then says, no more foreign aid, no more foreign wars. Come on, foreign aid spending will be cut to zero. Every single pound will be reinvested into building Britain, rebuilding Britain. Billions will fund infrastructure projects to rejuvenate neglected towns. This dude doesn't even know what he's talking about. When he's talking about foreign aid to Ukraine is what we can safely assume. He's talking about weapons that they are sending over. How are you going to modernize schools with tanks and shells? You're going to put shells in all of the school classrooms? How does that even make sense? Prioritizing the NHS. Lord have mercy. By prioritizing, I don't even have to read this. I know it's going to be about vaccines. Accountability in government. Zero tolerance on crime with a shitty ChatGPT image on the side. We don't have to read the rest, but I just want to imprint on you guys that it is absolutely crucial that we defend liberal ideals over the next few years because they're under attack. Trump is going to move the Overton window that I was talking about to the right. Our ideals will be under attack. The onus is going to be on us to be strong leaders, to fight for individual freedom when they're trying to ban Pornhub in Texas, ban all porn in Texas. Not that I care at all, but my friend cares. My friend cares a lot about that stuff. So, a transparent and fair tax system. The current tax code is a labyrinth. I don't want to read the rest of this, but you guys get the idea. If you appreciated this video, drop a like, subscribe. Have a great rest of your day. I'll see you in the next video. Peace out.